Welcome to Wine Soundtrack USA. Listen to the passion with which producers narrate their winery and their world in 30 answers. Discover their stories, personalities, and passions.
Hello, friends and listeners of Wine Soundtrack. This is Allison Levine, and I'm with Janu Goelz today from Alara Cellars in Santa Clara Valley. Santa Clara. Janu, welcome, and tell us, where is Santa Clara Valley, and tell us about Alara Cellars.
Santa Clara Valley is located, well, where I am specifically, I'm in Gilroy. Santa Clara Valley is in the Bay Area. Gilroy is about 20-30 minutes south of San Jose, and that is where Alara Cellars is located. Alara is a new winery. I opened up October 2017, so just a little over a year ago. I'm located at the Stomping Ground, which is kind of a wine destination in progress. There are currently 4 winery tasting rooms there. It's also a custom crush facility. And I'm open just Saturday, Sundays, 12 to 5, small winery. That's where I am.
Fantastic. And how much wine do you produce?
Again, small winery, so about 1,200 cases.
And what are the grapes you're producing?
That is a long list. So for the whites, I do Chardonnay, Pinot Grigio, Grenache Blanc, Viognier. I do a couple rosés, a Grenache rosé as well as a Barbera rosé. I do a late harvest Viognier, and for the red wines, I do Pinot Noir, Barbera, Sangiovese, Grenache, Tempranillo, Negrette, Cab Pfeffer, Montepulciano. I think that's it.
That's a pretty good list of grapes. And where are you sourcing your fruit from?
Mainly San Benito County. So Hollister area. It's about 25 minutes south of Gilroy. So San Benito is what's on my bottle, but I'm located in Santa Clara Valley.
Okay. So I know that I had the pleasure of tasting your wine, your Grenache Blanc, actually in a blind tasting. I wasn't aware I was tasting it at the time, judging the Central Coast Wine Competition this last year. And your wine won Best of White Wines, but also Best in Show, that Grenache Blanc. So congratulations. Pretty good for your first start out of the gate.
Thank you. Yeah, it was definitely a surprise. It was the first competition I've ever entered, so I was really just crossing my fingers for a gold. Hopefully I get a gold. Best of Show just blew my mind. That was not even something I was considering at all. It was really exciting.
So you're a new winemaker, and I'm wondering if you could recall your first memory relevant to wine.
First memory. Well, when I was drinking wine when I was 8 years old, and it was Kendall Jackson, Gewürztraminer. No, let's see. My parents have always drank wine. When I turned 21, I started going wine tasting with them. But I think one of the wines that blew my mind was actually at a trade show. It was at an Epic trade show in San Francisco. It was called Caro. It's a Catena Rothschild collaboration. It's like a Bordeaux blend. It's Cab and Malbec, I believe. And it was bold, structured, just so delicious. It just made me think about what I was actually drinking. It was really good.
And that's one of the wines that sort of set you on your path?
It's definitely something that set me on my path, but probably what really set me on my path is Late Bloomer by Herman Story. It's a Grenache, and it's a quite heavily oaked Grenache, but it's still balanced in the glass. And that's really influenced my winemaking style. I like to put a good amount of oak on my wines, but still find that balance. But I would probably pick that one over. I should redo that and choose that one first.
So have you spent a lot of time traveling the world tasting wine, or more domestically?
Definitely more domestically. I've traveled the world, but it was more so when I was younger, so I wasn't really at the wine drinking age. I've gone to Croatia and done wine tasting. We went there for our honeymoon, which was really nice. But for the most part, we don't really get out that much. It's kind of in the local area. We go to Carmel or Monterey or Santa Cruz. I rarely get up to Sonoma, Napa, sometimes Paso if I'm down in LA and we're driving back. So definitely more local stuff, or more domestic, sorry.
So I know we were talking a bit before, and you and your husband drink regularly at home, so you don't really keep a cellar of wine per se. Do you have any wines in storage there? And if so, any special bottles you're holding on to?
Let me think. I have a couple Hall cabs. We were wine club members there for a little bit. We have a couple Rich Montebellos. Everything else does not last unless we keep it at the winery. It does not last at our house at all. So
you work with a number of varieties. I know that you've only been making wine for a short time, but you've been with your husband, who is a winemaker as well, and tasted with him over the years. Do you feel that there's a such thing as a perfect variety?
No. I think no. I don't know how else to answer that. No, I don't. I like a lot of varieties. I don't think anyone is more perfect than the next. I think it's all about finding that balance when you're creating the wine. That will make it perfect in itself, but I don't think there's an actual perfect variety. I think there are probably varieties that are a little bit harder to grow and harder to work with, but no perfect.
And what are your thoughts on wine critics and scores?
I really like them, so I hope I get really good scores. I am a new winery, so I don't have, I guess, too much thought of it, or of how it's affected me too much. I've definitely done pretty well my first year. I got 7 over 90-point wines this year in Wine Enthusiast, which was really exciting. I think they're important. They're a good way to get to the consumer and to get my wines to the consumer. So, everybody's palate is different, so people need to keep that in mind when they are reading the scores. But, everything, if it helps sell the wine, then I'm all for it.
Well, you've done pretty well for your first year. That's some good scores. Congratulations. So, as a wine drinker, as a consumer, I should say, red, white, or rosé?
It depends on the mood, the time, temperature. They're all acceptable for me.
Sparkling or still?
To me, that's a question about water. But we should add sparkling to the list of red, white, and pink. Also sparkling.
And of the sparkling, a preference for champagne or for some other area?
I definitely. Again, I don't discriminate. I drink a lot. I like to try as much as I can. I definitely like champagne a lot, but I've also had some other good sparkling. So just all of it for breakfast.
All of the above and for breakfast. So I know that with all that drinking and sometimes what happens is a hangover. Do you have any special remedies or cures for hangovers?
Yeah, I have a few. I've tried a lot of them. Alka-Seltzer at night. Sometimes if I overdid it in the morning, I'll pop two multi-mega vitamins. But other than that, just sleep with a glass of water near your bed. And the second you wake up in the middle of the night, chug that entire glass. That helps too. Yeah,
I would agree with that one. I've done the same exact thing. So what do you think that a non-drinker loses out on by not tasting your wines?
Just experiencing something new, really. That's about it. It's a fun packaging. It's a fun story. So I work with a fashion designer. I tell her what I think the wines would look like if they were dresses. So it's kind of fun for people in my tasting room to either guess what the label's going to look like. They don't want to see it before they try the wine. It's just a fun experience. I enjoy my wine, so it'd be nice to share. So I guess they're just missing out on the experience, really, of trying.
So if space aliens were to land on your property, I know you were anticipating that question. If space aliens were to land on your property and you were to be able to offer them one of your wines, which of the wines would you select?
Maybe the Negrette, because it's a good conversation piece, because a lot of people are not familiar with the Negrette. And so, I guess if I'm trying to have a conversation with aliens, it'd be an interesting place to start. But I'd probably say that I find that one does really well out of the tasting room. And yeah, mainly because it's not so familiar to people. So it's kind of fun to talk about.
Can you tell us a little bit about what Negrette is?
So it's a varietal from southwest of France, kind of close to Bordeaux. It is commonly made into a rosé or blended with Bordeaux varietals. I think there's only about 20 or so acres planted in California, so it's really rare. It's a really dark grape, rich, velvety. It's good, smooth. Not necessarily really suitable for aging. It doesn't have a lot of tannins in it, but it's nice.
And how did that get interpreted into a dress on the label?
It is a black, bold dress. It's a gown. It's really kind of a elegant, sexy gown, and she has red lips. So it's kind of a nice, bold label.
I can envision it now. So you've been making wine for a few years. I think you had told me you started in 2015. And so starting in 2014. So for the last 4 years, would you say, looking at each vintage, do you see more variation from vintage to vintage, or do you see more sort of similarity?
I see. You were right about the 15 for Alara Cellars. There is a bit of similarity from vintage to vintage. However, I've been buying more barrels, so really you'll notice a difference in terms of more oak used on my wines. But in terms of vintage to vintage, and there's climate that affects it, but I feel my wines from the vineyard are pretty, or the fruit from the vineyard is pretty consistent. Mm-hmm. Like this Pinot that we're having right now tastes pretty similar to my last year vintage. It's pretty consistent stylistic wise. Just we're progressing with more oak each vintage.
And have you initiated any good luck rituals when harvest is about to start?
This is actually kind of weird. Scott Labs. I have this little Scott Labs measuring cup. It's just this plastic cup, and I use it for everything. So I don't even measure things anymore. I know how many grams of yeast, at a certain level of it gets to. And I couldn't find it, and I kind of freaked out, and I called this manager, who's also a buddy of ours at Scott Labs, and I asked him if he had any more. It was just really strange. I couldn't start harvest without it. And he was nice. He found 3 actually, and sent me 3. So
you have a backup.
Yeah, and I actually wrote Alara Cellars on them, so they're definitely mine. Yeah, so I guess I have that.
Well, we won't question that, because as long as the wines are good, then we'll believe that it is all about that cup. Do you find yourself connecting with your wine or going down to the vineyard and the grapes by talking to it? Do you ever talk to it in the cellar? And if so, what do you say to it?
I do talk to it in the cellar. Actually, my husband asked me that earlier, or, during harvest this year. He came by and he was like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I'm willing it to be beautiful and amazing." And I'm just telling it I love it. And it's silly, but yeah, yes, I do. I talk to it. We have quite a few conversations actually during harvest.
It's good to have a good relationship with your wine.
It's really one-sided conversation, but they're all really good listeners, I guess.
When you were little, what did you want to be when you grew up? And I know that wine is not your first career, so maybe you can tell our listeners sort of the path you've taken once I hear what you wanted to be when you were a kid.
Well, this is a little interesting. I wanted to be an assassin.
Huh.
Yeah, the movie Long Kiss Goodnight just really left an impression. I really wanted to be an assassin. But yeah, like you said, my career has taken interesting turns. After graduating from college, I actually ended up acting in 2 movies in India. So I went to India, stayed there for a few months, and did 2 movies. After that, I ended up starting a clothing line when I came back. This was in San Francisco, and I was taking Indian Saaris and turning them into cocktail dresses. I had a design partner, and so she and I did that. And from there, I ended up actually entering the news industry. I ended up being the weather anchor at Cron 4 because my studio neighbor, when I had to design my clothing line, he was at Cron, and he actually got me a job there. So I ended up being the weather reporter for 5 years at Cron. While I was doing that, I met Jason, my husband, who basically sucked me into the wine industry. now I'm really far down that rabbit hole. I'm not going anywhere else.
You can say he sucked you into it, or you just got bit by the bug.
I'm definitely bit by the bug. After my first harvest, I just fell in love with it. It's so fun creating, and harvest is so exhausting. And I mean, it really breaks you down mentally and physically, but it's so rewarding at the same time. It's a fun experience.
So when you're not working, how do you spend your free time?
Drinking.
Nothing else to say to that. Do you have a favorite singer or group?
Favorite singer? I have a favorite song.
Okay.
Dire Maker by Led Zeppelin. I love that song. I'm obsessed with that song. But not necessarily a favorite singer or group. I like a lot of music. I listen to a lot of reggae. I like rock. I like hip hop. An
eclectic mix.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And do you have a favorite film that's about wine? Or wine is included in it?
No.
Mm-mm. For a really romantic evening, and I know you work with your husband and you live with your husband and your whole lives together, but hopefully you carve out a few romantic evenings. What wine would you order?
Mi Sueño. It is the bottle of wine that Jason proposed to me with.
Aww.
It's really funny because he doesn't know any Spanish at all. And he was like, Mi Sueño, it means my dream. I'm like, yeah, no, I know, honey, thanks. That's cute.
You took all the romanticism out of that proposal.
Well, he asked me to be his dingleberry for life. So, I mean, it wasn't really a romantic. It wasn't really romantic. It sums us up in a crazy nutshell, but yeah.
So what would you say is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Don't open a winery. My husband told me to do that, not do it, and I did. And we're both negative millionaires living the dream, but it's fun. It's a fun industry, though.
So what's the best piece of advice you could offer our listeners today?
Drink more wine.
And don't open a winery.
And don't open a winery. It's fun.
What is your proudest achievement in your work to date?
It would have been winning Best of Show. I mean, that was crazy to me, and I'm really proud of it. It is a really good wine. There's some other news to come, but I'm also really proud of that. But we won't mention it until it's been released. But it's just been an amazing year for Alara Cellars, and I'm really proud of a lot of the positive feedback and awards and all of that I've been getting. So it's exciting. It's an exciting time.
It's a good achievement for a young brand. Yeah. It's a very good achievement. So, complete the sentence for me. A table without wine is like...
Oh, we can't cuss, right? I don't know. I'm leaving that table. Table without wine is broken.
I really want to hear what you would have said otherwise. Go for it.
Horse shit.
Ah.
That's the correct answer to that.
Well, that'll either get beeped out or everyone will know exactly what you think about that. Okay, so a VIP is photographed in a restaurant by paparazzi. And on the table behind them is a bottle of your wine. Let's say it's your award-winning Grenache Blanc. Who, of all the people in the world, living or dead, would you want to be that VIP person?
Albert Einstein. Just his image, that hair with my bottle would be perfect.
So do you think we'll be drinking wine in 200 years' time? I know you're new to the winemaking world, but winemaking's been happening for thousands of years. But we also have climate change and a lot of things happening. Where do you see us in 200 years or more?
I mean, if we're still around and we're not on Mars, well, the winemaking would still move there. I think we'll be drinking wine. It's been around forever. I think it'll stay. I mean, it's part of some religion, so there's that too. That's going for us.
So you're heading off to a deserted island. What are 3 wines you would take with you?
That's so difficult. I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. I don't have an answer for that.
No?
No, I don't think
It wouldn't be a dry island, though.
I mean, I would definitely take wine if I had to go. Like, am I preparing for this? Clearly, I'm preparing for this. If I'm thinking about what wine, I don't know what I would bring. Maybe the Mismagno, a good Ridge Montebello. That's always like a good go-to.
One more.
Herman's Story Late Bloomer. And there we go, full circle.
You got your big wines on your island.
Yeah, I do.
And tell me, I know you were saying you haven't spent a lot of time traveling internationally for wine. Is there one place on your bucket list that you're itching to get to and explore?
I mean, I don't know if I sound boring, but Bordeaux. I'm a big Bordeaux fan. Cab is probably my favorite varietal. I really like Cab Franc though. Okay, wait, I don't know between the two. But probably Bordeaux would be first, but I mean, there's so many regions. I'd want to see them all, but that's like the first one that comes to mind.
And just to finish up, we're here on Wine Soundtrack, so we're going to play our fun little music and wine game. You said that you're a fan of Led Zeppelin, one particular song in all styles of music. So I'm just going to name a couple different wines that we talked about, and you tell me what it makes you think of. So let's start with that Herman's Story wine.
That would be Cocaine by Led Zeppelin.
Okay. And what about the Ridge Montebello?
Ridge Montebello. That one's a nice big one. It's also fun. I'd go Closer by 9 Inch Nails.
Okay. And let's move over to one of your wines. What about your Negrette? I know that you describe your wines through fashion, but now describe them through wine. Negrette.
Negrette with a song. What would it be? It is sexy and aggressive. I would go Killing in the Name of by Rage Against the Machine.
Okay, and what about your Best in Show winning Grenache Blanc?
Oh, that one's kind of light. That's like Bob Marley. Let's see, like Three Little Birds.
Okay, we're going to finish it off as we're sipping here some lovely Pinot Noir, your Pinot Noir. Tell me what we should be listening to right now as you take a sip.
What's the name of that song? I feel like it's kind of Bruno Mars-ish. It's so fun. I can't think of the name of it, but I'm definitely going with Bruno Mars here.
Okay. Yeah. I would agree.
Thanks.
I'm enjoying the wine too. I can imagine that. So I want to thank you, Jenny, for joining us today. And before we go, if you can just remind everyone where they can find your wines and how they can visit you.
Yeah, so Alara Cellars, we're in Gilroy, located at the Stomping Ground. alaracellars.com if you'd like to purchase online or just check me out a little bit further. But yeah, Gilroy, California, Santa Clara, AVA, come visit.
There are a few wineries there, so you're not isolated. There are about 30 plus wineries in the area, and Alara Cellars is one of the lovely little producers there. So thank you again for joining us, and have a great afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening to a new episode of Wine Soundtrack USA. For details and updates, visit our website, winesoundtrack.com.